Welcome to the Business is Good podcast with Chris Young, president of the Good Place Institute, helping leaders build and steward thriving organizations where people flourish, communities prosper, and the organization is economically regenerative. I'm your host, Jim Brangenberg. So why does your company exist? I mean, I know you exist to sell something or a service, but why do you exist? Do you even know? A company has to exist beyond just to make money because you can make money a million different ways. So why did you choose to make money this way? That's what your charter is all about. Why you exist. It sets everything else in motion. You know, Chris, for someone who's never heard the word charter in this context, how would you describe it?
Yeah, it is a little bit of a funky word in business, right? Because it's like a nautical term. But the easiest way to describe it is it's the embodiment of purpose, vision, mission, values, and hopefully some inspiration.
Well, you got to say that was a lot. I can't even say it all again. So it's taken together all these different things at one time.
Yeah, it's mainly a purpose. Now we have clients that separate those out. Here's our purpose statement and mission statement and vision statement, because sometimes you have different definitions for that. But a really well-written charter is the embodiment of those things. It's mainly your purpose statement.
You know, when we were in elementary school, or maybe it was middle school, we learned about the Magna Charta. I mean, really. I mean, that's what it was. It was all about, why are we doing this? I mean, a good place.
Are you talking about the Magna Carta?
Oh, that's what it was, the Magna Carta. I was trying to pull that in together. It just didn't work. It didn't work. Okay.
I like it. I love it.
I just embedded a new piece of history. All right. So a good place organization, though, you feel like developing the charter, that's got to be the first element before you do anything else, right? I mean,
right on.
Is that why? Why is that so important?
Right. Well, let's back up just one second, because as you know, Jim, we like to talk about good place organizations, and this is one of the areas in the Good Place operating system. And the way we like to describe it is, let's first start with why. Because Simon Sinek didn't invent it, he commercialized it. So I love your question to start there. And then we'll go to the what and the how here in a little bit probably. But why? It's the biblical foundation. Because God is always purposeful. And if you go back to Genesis, he created with purpose. In the beginning, God created, and that changes everything. And he created with purpose and design. And that's why we start with a charter, because God started with purpose.
So you're equating purpose and charter together.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So can you share an example? It always helps. Examples always help people think. Can you share an example of a leader or a business that got clarity when they finally defined their charter? Maybe a better question is, can you give me a business that didn't do it and then experience what happens when you don't do it? Maybe that's even better. I mean, can you think of a business that never really defined its purpose, its charter, and we don't even know about them anymore?
Yeah, well, McKinsey actually did. You know, the McKinsey group that does all the wonderful statistics and surveys and whatnot. They actually did one better, Jim. They actually said they put out some survey, and they said 72% of businesses think that purpose is actually more important than profit. That came from McKinsey. And then they went on and said, hey, 62% have a purpose statement. So there are businesses, and then here's the punchline, 42% of them actually use it to inform their decisions. So yes, so yes, there are businesses out there that have a purpose statement that actually guide their decision making. And that's important.
All right. So give us an example. Give us an example of a name that maybe we know about that got clarity when they finally defined their charter. Not one of those 30% that got a charter but never used it for anything, but it's a really pretty plaque on the boardroom wall.
Yeah. So we're working with a client now the way we produce a charter is very different than a vision statement, by the way. And I'll get to answering your question. I love you. Hey, give me an example, which I absolutely love. There is a way to get to the charter and craft a charter. And it has to do with defining the organization as an organization that serves. That's the purpose of the organization. So a charter also answers, who do you serve and how do you serve them? And so otherwise you just end up with a marketing message or a marketing vision. So one of our clients, they actually started articulating how does our organization serve? So the purpose of one of our group, it's called Grupo Transforma. They're actually out of Mexico. Grupo Transforma's purpose is to provide these beneficiaries with these benefits. The beneficiaries are the employees with what? With meaningful, fulfilling work, an opportunity to develop their full potential. With, provide customers with, excellent quality work in a way that's customized to their need. They also want to change an industry, so setting standards for the industry, and they want to do it in a way that's economically regenerative. And so right away, you have pretty focused and specific alignment around the focus of the organization, the purpose of the organization.
When you say economically regenerative, by the way, that's 11 syllables.
You love that word.
It's just 11 syllables. So explain that to people and give a couple sentences to explain economically regenerative, because I get it, I think, but maybe not everybody listening may go, Jim, you're much of a simpleton, but Chris, help out everybody that is struggling.
Good question. It's about producing surplus in order to reinvest to grow a healthy organization, and maybe even to multiply more good place organizations, because somewhere it said go forth and multiply, and we want to multiply kingdom experiences for people. So really the regen part is producing a surplus of resources so that we can continue to regen.
And I think the economic part has to do with the economy. And maybe it's the economy of the community that you operate in. Maybe it's your local community, or the worldwide community that you operate within as maybe a sector of the economy. But to recognize that the economy was God's idea. It's okay. As you're listening to this conversation today, if you're curious, you want to find out more, check out goodplaceinstitute.com. You'll find out a lot more about us and arrange a conversation to go deeper. All right. So what tends to happen when organizations skip this step of taking the deep time to set up a charter, and they treat it more like a vision statement? That conversation could go a million miles, because vision and mission, people are like, which one is more important? And which one is
which one goes first and second?
Yeah. Right? And was it the egg or the chicken?
Yeah. So what happens when we don't? In general, Jim, our experience, you start managing people and managing tasks instead of managing to purpose and outcomes. And so again, we'll get into that on another episode. But in essence, that's what really starts happening.
So you just lose your way, and you get caught up in doing things the way everybody else does. That's what you're saying?
Well, you can. There was a book out there called The Principle of the Path. And if you remember it was by Andy Stanley, actually. And he said, hey, you're going to make a lot of decisions in life. And those decisions either have a purpose or, some destinational thing in mind where you're making decisions toward accomplishing or toward fulfilling that purpose, or you're making a lot of decisions without that purpose, and you're going to end up somewhere someday and wonder, how did I get here? So this is very much about being very, very purposeful with all of the resources that God has entrusted to you in the business.
Here's a question for you then. I didn't warn you ahead of time that I may ask this one for, but does Chris Young have a personal charter?
We do. Or I do. I was going to say, I thought you were going to ask about my family.
Well, you could give us your family one. That'd be fine.
Yeah. Well, this is very interesting and very dangerous. And it's when you start asking that purposeful question. So we actually have several quote unquote charters and they're not written down or anything. I'm maybe I should, but several years ago. So I've been married going 25, going on 26 years to a wonderful, wonderful Proverbs 31 woman, and love her, and she's awesome. And God put it on our hearts many years ago, 20 plus years ago, to start asking that question. God, what's your purpose for fill in the blank? The gentleman I mentioned in a previous episode, Scott Myers, who wrote some things on utopian principles, good place principles. God laid it on his heart to start asking this purposeful question. God, what's your purpose in his case? And for our case, for business, what's your purpose for work and organizational life and that sort of thing? So, we started asking ourselves a question. God, what's your purpose for life? Is it the Westminster Catechism? To know God and enjoy him forever? Or if you're a John Piper fan, to know God by enjoying him forever? I think that's great. The purpose for life, really, and this is super simple, it's to glorify God, right? To create atmospheres where creation thrives and humans flourish. Every place in the Bible God created, that was the purpose. So that's our purpose, to glorify God, to have creation thrive, and to have humans flourish. The word is shalom. So our purpose as a family is shalom, not just peace. We'll get into that in a second. Fulfillment, purpose, harmony, harmonious relationship with God, with myself and each other, and with creation, and in our context, work. I probably said a lot there, but hopefully I answered your question,
that was
Jim.
Good. Yes, at oneness. The shalom is an at oneness kind of thing. All right,
it's completeness, right? It's completeness. It's fulfillment. It's more than just peace, which is the limitation of the English language, right? But it is the number one word that describes life in God's kingdom. It's awesome. It's completely awesome.
All right, let's give people a sneak peek, because I know in episodes going down the line, we're going to deal with hiring and planning and decision making. But how does the charter guide things like hiring and planning and decision making? I mean, talk about it.
That's a great question. So we have something called, affectionately, we call it purpose to people. So how does your purpose get all the way to your people? Right. So very practically, we put it on everybody's job description. Because if I were to ask you, let's say you're a bricklayer, Jim, and I were to ask you, what do you do? What's your job? You have three options. And I'll get to my point here in a second, because you know how I love to explain things. You could answer me, Chris, I lay bricks. That's awesome. That's usually the purpose statement of your position, or the position description on your job description, right? Answer number two, Chris, I'm helping build a wall. That's the purpose of your department that you work in. Fantastic. Chris, I'm helping build a cathedral. That's the charter. And so how do we do that very practically? It shows up at the charter level of the organization, the overall organization. It shows up at a departmental or system level. It shows up at the individual level on their job description and in their training plan. Because we're training people to not just do their job, but to fulfill the purpose of their department that has contribution to fulfilling the charter or the purpose of the whole organization. So that's just one example of that vertical integration. There's horizontal integration as well, and we'll probably get to that in managing systems.
So really you're saying charter impacts everything from the reports to the board of directors to the purchasing of pencils and everything in between, because it is, and yes, people still use pencils, because it is the core being. It's almost like the soul of the organization. It's why you exist. Is that what you're saying?
That's what we're saying. And there was another pretty famous author, right? Patrick Lencioni. He wrote a book called The Advantage. Yes, one of the quadrants is 6 critical questions that make your organization healthy. You want a healthy organization, because healthy organizations trump strategy, right? And all that sort of cultural stuff. And the charter answers those questions. Why do you exist? How do you behave? What are you supposed to achieve? How do you, what's important right now? And so, what sets the tone? What sets culture? What settles disputes? It's charter, it's purpose. That's what it is.
And if you don't have a charter, you need to look up goodplaceinstitute.com. Chris Young, great conversation today. Thank you for joining us today on the Business is Good podcast with Chris Young of the Good Place Institute. If today's conversation encouraged you or challenged you, we'd love to hear about it. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform and our YouTube channel, and share this episode. For more resources on how to build a good place or connect with our team, visit goodplaceinstitute.com.